How's it going, Ghostlings? My name is Ghost Aniki, and welcome back to D&D Class, where we talk about everything D&D. Today we're going to be discussing a homebrew class I made called the Chef. I made the Chef for a friend of mine who really wanted to make Senshi from Delicious in Dungeon, or Dungeon Meshi, depending on what you call it. And given the classes that are already present and the background's already present, he couldn't figure out how he was going to do that. And so I thought, well, why not go ahead and just make a class for it, and so that's how this came about. The Chef is kind of based on the Bard and how it levels up, the progression of its levels, and its spellcasting is kind of a mix between a Bard and a Sorcerer in how many cantrips you know, how many spells you know, your spell slots, things like that. I kind of took a middle ground approach, but it is reminiscent of a Bard in a lot of ways. I personally think it's a little bit more utility in terms of battle and character player support, like your party members, I should say. But we'll see. Tell me what you think at the end of it. So to start out, we're going to go over the Chef class tables pretty quickly. Nothing important that we won't go over here in a bit. As you can see with the Chef table, you've got your levels, your proficiency bonuses at each level, which is all standard, and then your features. As you'll see, some of them double up at different points. Again, pretty standard. Your ability score improvement and your option to change your cantrips, all pretty normal stuff. Next up, we have the Chef's spell table. Again, pretty standard stuff. You've got your levels, how many cantrips you know at each level, spells known at each level, and how many spell slots of what level you have at each level. Like I said earlier, I kind of went in between how many spells and cantrips and spell slots a Bard has and what a Sorcerer has. I kind of went with the middle number between the two in most cases. And I think it turned out a pretty even, well-balanced mix. I don't think it has especially too much, especially too little. I think it'll work well for the kinds of spells that the Chef can cast and its subclasses. Next up for spellcasting, we have the Chef's spell list. You'll see in cantrips through level 9, all of the spells have to do with cooking in some way, whether it's how you cook, what you use to cook, the hierarchy in a kitchen, restaurants themselves, or even just eating and what food can do for people. I would encourage you to pause the video here and when I scroll down so you can get all the spells written down. But all of them have to do with some aspect of cooking and food preparation. So here's cantrips through level 5. And then down here at the bottom, I've scrolled down a little bit, level 6 through level 9. Next up is our spellcasting rules. Your connection to food and culinary processes have deepened to the point of tapping into the world's magic. Your spells are born from a deep understanding and respect for food, the processes involved, and what it can do to and for others. In terms of the spellcasting rules, the Chef follows pretty similar rules to a Bard. You have your spells known, you have your cantrips known, you have your certain amount of spell slots, and you can change your spells and cantrips known at different points. Pretty basic, standard stuff for D&D. The big difference here is, rather than with a Bard being charisma as your spellcasting ability, for the Chef it's intelligence. Intelligence is your spellcasting ability for your Chef spells. Your magic comes from your devotion to food, health, and bringing people together. You use your intelligence whenever a spell refers to your spellcasting ability. In addition, you use your intelligence modifier when setting the saving throw DC for a Chef spell you cast and when making an attack roll with one. The way I see it is a Chef uses their knowledge of food, their knowledge of techniques, what foods go together, things like that, to make their food and to really do well. There could be arguments made for wisdom being a bigger factor in cooking, or even charisma in some cases, but I account for that later on in the subclasses, as you'll see. Intelligence felt like the thing that connected them all to me. If you take this class and make it your own, work with your DM, they may decide, hey, switch out intelligence for wisdom or something like that, which is perfectly fine. As you can see, we've got our spell saves, DC, spell attack modifier, ritual casting is an option, and your spell casting focus. You can use your cook's utensils or your brewer's supplies, depending on what you choose, as a spell casting focus for your Chef spells. So you do have a spell casting focus, and it's one of the tool sets that you get later on in the class options. And now we come to our class features, which I'm going to spend a little bit more time on. You must have an intelligence score of 13 or higher to multiclass into or out of this class. That's a pretty standard ruling for all D&D classes. You have to have a 13 or higher and a specific ability score to be able to multiclass into or out of a class. It goes across the board. Next up, we've got our hit points. For hit dice, we've got 1d8 per Chef level, which is pretty standard. None of the classes go below a d6. None of them go above a d10 as far as I'm aware. 1d8 is pretty middle ground, pretty average for the classes. And then you have the same kind of rulings for how you get your HP and your HP at higher levels as you do for most classes. Next up, we've got proficiencies. You've got armor, light, medium, and shields, weapons, simple melee weapons, battle axes, short swords, and tridents. For the martial weapons, I kind of try to think of ones that could be seen as cooking utensils. You know, battle axes are kind of your hatchets, your cleavers, your bigger kitchen knives, short swords, your standard kitchen knives, tridents, forks, you know, things like that. Tools, you've got brewer supplies and cook's utensils. Saving throws are intelligence and constitution, and in skills you can choose 2 from either sleight of hand, history, arcana, insight, or perception. Next we come to our equipment received. You start out with a battle axe, a trident, or any simple melee weapon. You get a diplomat's pack or an explorer's pack, depending on if you want to play a more charismatic chef or a more utilitarian chef. You get brewer's supplies or cook's utensils, again, depending on how you want to play your chef. And you get leather armor and either a dagger or a hand axe. And now we come to our standard class features. These are going to be your features you get regardless of the subclass you choose, anything like that. At level 1, you gain access to Sear. This allows you to infuse your weapon strikes with the flames you use to cook. Your non-magical weapon attacks can now deal an additional D4 fire damage, and this damage goes up to D8 at level 17. At level 2, you gain Freeze, where you can infuse your weapon strikes with the freezing temperatures you use to preserve food. Your non-magical weapon attacks can now do a D4 additional cold damage. You can remove or switch between Sear's Fire and Freeze's Cold damage using an action. The chosen damage type remains in effect until you choose to switch or remove the effect. The added damage for Freeze increases to D8 at level 18. So those two you can switch back and forth for or turn off entirely. And so it adds an extra D4 of one of those elemental damages to each of your strikes that hit. It's just kind of a neat little added damage bonus that I think allows for, you know, say you're up against a troll. You don't have to worry about expending a ton of spell slots to make sure that it's taking fire damage. Your strikes do fire damage if you choose, but then if you have an enemy directly with it, that after you beat it, you know, you see, oh no, this other enemy we're fighting is resistant to fire, you can switch to cold or just shut it off entirely. At level 3, you gain your chef's specialty. Your focuses and unique cooking style start to shine through. Choose a chef's specialty subclass. You gain its features at levels 3, 6, 10, and 14. And we'll get into those subclasses here in a moment. At level 4, we start gaining ability score improvements and the ability to change our cantrips if we so choose. You can increase one ability score by 2 or 2 ability scores by 1 each at levels 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19. And as per what is normal for D&D, you can't increase an ability score beyond 20 using this feature. There may be some items or things you get later on that allow you to, but using this feature you can only level up a score to 20. Additionally, at levels that grant an ability score improvement, you can replace one cantrip you know with another from the chef's spell list. So if you have a cantrip that you're not really feeling anymore, you can replace it. You get one at each of those levels. And keep in mind, some DMs allow players to take a feat rather than an ability score improvement. So check with your DM for specific rulings regarding that. Some allow it, some don't. It's just up to the DM. At level 5, we get a feature called Modified Dish. Your knowledge and intuition in the kitchen spreads into other areas of your life. You may choose to use your intelligence in place of strength or dexterity for weapon attacks. This is that utility I was talking about earlier where, you know, usually spellcasters don't have a lot going for them in way of combat and physical combat. This gives you a little bit more option to maybe do some more physical damage than what you normally would be able to otherwise. It doesn't give you a special ability like a lot of features do, but it does allow for a bit more utility and a little bit more choice in your combat style. At level 7, we gain the feature Order Up. The speed and intensity of the kitchen influences your spell casting. You can now regain one spell slot of level 1 or 2 per long rest. At level 9, you can regain 2 spell slots of level 1 or 2, and it can be one of each. So you can regain a level 1 and a level 2, 2 level 1s or 2 level 2s, your choice. At level 11, you regain 2 spell slots of level 1 or 2 and regain 1 spell slot of level 3. And at level 13, you can regain 2 spell slots of level 1 or 2, or 1 spell slot of level 3, or 1 spell slot of level 4. Like I said, for all of these, you can do that once per day. So you have your choice in how you want to do it If you want to regain more spell slots or less spell slots of higher level, your choice, but the point is you're getting to regain a couple spell slots each time you take a long rest. Our next feature comes at level 15 with Years of Experience. Your years of work cooking have made you an expert in what you do. You now have advantage with the tools you are proficient with and with 2 skills you are proficient in of your choice. So all tools you're proficient with, you now have advantage on, and then 2 skills you're proficient in of your choice, you have advantage on. And at level 20, we have the final feature, Main Course. The preparations are done, the dish is served. Once per long rest, you may heal yourself and any creatures you choose that you can see within 60 feet of yourself for 50 HP, and any status conditions on yourself and them, and give advantage on attack rolls and ability and skill checks until the end of your next turn. Using this ability imposes 2 levels of exhaustion onto you at the end of your turn. So say you use this ability and you get 1 long rest and then get to a point where you have to use this ability again. That would put you at 3 levels of exhaustion because a long rest only gets rid of 1 level. So that's kind of the trade-off here. Is this seems like a very overpowered kind of final feature, but it also has a drawback to the user. Next we come to our subclasses, the chef's specialties. There's the professional, the celebrity, the home cook, and the survivalist. What you'll see is that each of them have the trade skills feature at level 3 and the area of expertise feature at level 10. These change a little bit between the subclasses, but the name remains the same and the general concept is the same, as you'll see when we get into them. So at level 3 with the professional, you become well practiced with the skills of your specialty. You gain proficiency in the perception and intimidation skills. If you have proficiency in either or both of them already, you gain advantage in whichever ones you already have proficiency in. So say you have proficiency in intimidation already, you gain proficiency in perception and then advantage in intimidation. If you have proficiency in both, you get advantage in both. It just kind of depends on how you've built the character. At level 6, we gain the feature Tough Skin. Cooking in a fast-paced environment around all the standard cooking hazards has made your skin unnaturally scarred and tough. Gain +1 to your base AC. Pretty standard, pretty basic. You get a +1 to your AC, gives you a little bit more defense, makes you a little harder to hit. At level 10, we gain the Area of Expertise feature. Your continued work has improved your spellcasting and other skills associated with your work. Gain +1 to your Intelligence ability score, and +1 to your Strength or Dexterity ability scores. This makes the professional a little bit more of a physical combat subclass for the chef. Rather than a magic caster, you're going to be focused a little bit more on combat. And at level 14, you gain the Slice and Dice feature. The intensity of the professional cooking world has created a stronger focus in battle for you. You can now make a second weapon attack as a bonus action, same as a standard attack action. Once again, this makes you a little bit more of a combat-focused chef instead of the magic caster. You can make 2 weapon attacks instead of 1. It still uses your bonus action, but you don't have the drawback of not having your proficiency bonus added on. Next, we have the Celebrity. At level 3, you get trade skills, which gives you proficiency or advantage in performance and persuasion. At level 6, we gain the Notoriety feature. You are well known for your recipes and performances. Wherever you go, you're sure to find a fan. Roll a d4. On an even number, the individual you are interacting with knows of you. On an odd number, they don't. If you are known by the individual, they feel inclined to help you through discounts, information, and or other means the DM finds reasonable. At level 10, we gain the Area of Expertise feature. This gives you a +1 to your Intelligence score and a +1 to your Charisma ability score. And at level 14, we gain the Famous feature. Your position in the public eye and natural charisma has given you a special sway over others. Once per long rest, in or out of combat, you may choose up to 5 creatures that you can see within 30 feet of you. The targets must each make a Wisdom saving throw, with the DC being your spell save DC. On a fail, the targets are charmed for 1 hour or until you or a companion do something harmful to them. This fails automatically if the creature is immune to being charmed. So the Celebrity kind of gives you a little bit more focus on some roleplay aspects and possibilities, as well as a little bit of, turning enemies' heads, things like that. Next up is the Home Cook. At level 3, you gain proficiency or advantage in medicine and insight. Next up, we have the Home Cook. At level 3, with trade skills, you gain proficiency or advantage in medicine and insight. At level 6, you gain the Lick the Spoon ability. Your love and care for those you cook for makes your healing magic even more potent. Your healing spells and abilities now heal for an additional 10 HP. Fun little story about the Lick the Spoon ability. I was talking to my mother when I was making this class, and I was trying to come up with, okay, what are our subclasses, what are our abilities, things like that. And she goes, oh, you should name one ability, Lick the Spoon. And I'm like, lick the spoon? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I mean, that fits with the home cook idea, you know, home bakers, things like that. I can do that. And so that's where Lick the Spoon comes in, it's my mom's idea. And my mom growing up, she was baking all the time, especially around the holidays. She baked a ton, so it's very fitting. At level 10, we gain Area of Expertise. This gives you a +1 to your Intelligence ability score and a +1 to your Wisdom ability score. And at level 14, we gain the added Nutrition feature. Your knowledge of the nutritional needs of the body allow you to get the most out of your food. You gain the benefits of a long rest from a short rest and only require half the food and water you normally would. Additionally, if you spend at least 1 hour preparing a meal, yourself and any others who eat it will not require any more food or water for the next 24 hours. So with the home cook, everything is about helping your party. Additional healing, making sure they don't need more food or water, which gives them more money in their pockets, you know, things like that. It's all about support for your party. And finally, we have the Survivalist. At level 3, you get Trade Skills, which gives you proficiency or advantage in nature and survival. At level 6, we gain the feature Creature Knowledge. Years of studying the wild have given you keen insight into using anything available as ingredients. You can gather an ingredient the DM describes from a downed non-humanoid enemy creature. When someone eats food you make with these ingredients, roll on the ingredients effects table. That status goes into effect immediately. One roll determines the effect for all who eat the meal. Do not roll for each individual who eats the meal. So if you have a group of 6 who are eating the food you make with these ingredients from different non-humanoid enemy monsters, they all have the same effect. Those effects could be: on a 1, you inflict the paralyzed condition for 1 hour or unless healed. On a 2, you add +2 AC for 1 hour. On a 3, it inflicts poison condition for 1 hour or unless healed. On a 4, you end a single status condition immediately. On a 5, you get advantage rolls on all rolls for 10 minutes. And on a 6, you heal 10 HP immediately. So there's a lot of randomness there, a lot of possibility. I thought it was kind of fun because, you know, you never know how a monster's, you know, liver, as an example, is going to interact when boiled in a stew. You know, it could be random, it could be helpful, it could be bad, it could taste good, it could taste bad. That's, you know, the dice you roll, pun intended. At level 10, we gain Area of Expertise, which gives you a +1 to your Intelligence ability score and a +1 to your Dexterity or your Wisdom ability scores. You get another choice there. And at level 14, we gain Surviving Against Odds. Your expertise in surviving the wilds has made you difficult to bring down. Once per long rest, if you take damage that would bring you to 0 HP, you can drop to 1 HP instead. You may use this feature additional times, but any uses beyond the first impose 2 levels of exhaustion onto you after the end of your next action. So you can use it more than once if you get downed again, but it's going to impose exhaustion, 2 levels of exhaustion every time you do. And finally, for all this, I wanted to go ahead and give you guys the flavor text I came up with for each subclass and for the class as a whole. Hopefully this kind of can inspire you into how you want to make your character, the ideas I had behind it, things like that. So for the chef as a whole, you have a deep love of food and what it can do and mean for others. Everyone eats and you're the one who provides that meal. Whether you cook for the art, to help others, or to fulfill your job, you give it all you've got. That devotion gives you a magical connection to cooking. So that should be the basis for your character, is the love of food, the love of cooking and what it can do. Now for the subclasses. The professional. You cook with precision and duty. You may cook in an upscale restaurant, for ranks of military soldiers, in a prison for inmates, or some other professional capacity. That doesn't mean you don't cook with passion. It just means you add tenacity and perfectionist touch to it. So the professional is going to be your one that works in a very structured environment. Like I said, a restaurant, a prison, in a military ranks, something along those lines where you have to follow a certain schedule, certain patterns, certain rules to a T. That doesn't allow you to have as much freedom in experimenting and things like that, but it does make you a lot more tenacious, a lot more speedy, and have much more a perfectionist touch in everything you do. The celebrity. You love the performance and art of cooking, showing off your technique, making dishes look stunning, and telling your stories as you do. Food is your top priority, but entertaining isn't far behind. Plus the oohs and ahs don't hurt either. So the celebrity is kind of like a bard. I'm thinking, celebrity chefs, they love to entertain. And that's a big part of the celebrity chef. But above entertaining is cooking. For a bard, entertaining is the big thing. Storytelling, dancing, singing, that's the focus. For a celebrity, that's a big love. They love doing that, but cooking is still the ultimate thing for them. Next is the home cook. You take great pride in enjoying caring for others. You know the body and what nutrients it needs for healing and growth better than most. Your added touch of extra love and care make your magic in food that much better. For the home cook, I was thinking things like your standard home cooks, the person in the family who cooks the most, home bakers, small-time bakers and chefs, your small establishments. Nutritionists even could fall into this category. The idea is you're healing through food, you're providing through food, and that should be the focus there. And finally, the survivalist. Surviving the wild isn't easy, but exploration and adventure are what you do. Finding ingredients from plants and creatures to help you and your friends survive is your specialty. The ingredients may not always work as you expect, but your friends can bet you are taking notes to make the ingredients work and taste even better. So, as I said in the beginning of the video, the friend I made this class for really wanted to make a character based on Senshi from Delicious in Dungeon, and that's where the survivalist subclass comes in. It's going to be your dungeoneers, your adventurers, your explorers who they love to cook. Their skill before adventuring was cooking, and they're bringing that in and experimenting with new flavors and ingredients and effects and things like that. So there you have the chef class. This one took me a long time to write. Spellcasters take a long time to write for, but I think it turned out really good. I'm very happy with how it turned out and the possibilities here. I don't know how balanced it is. I haven't play tested it, so it's hard to say, but I think it turned out well, and I'm excited to hear what you guys do with it. If you make your own characters using the class, how it goes, feel free to let me know in the comments. As always, thank you all for being here. If you liked everything, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your neighbors, and share with the chef you know in your life. They're cooking up a storm. They're feeding you. The least you could do is share this information with them. Share it with them while they're cooking. As always, I appreciate you all being here. Have a great night, great week, great day, great everything, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, Ghostlings.